Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Mike and I'm here to do another movie log for the period of last 7 days. It's beginning with Monday, March 9th and ending on Sunday, March 15th. So let me show you what I watched during that 7-day period. Starting off with the film that I saw in my film class on Wednesday night. Once again, we're doing the films of 1999 and we saw The Matrix, the original. And I've had this copy of The Matrix sitting on my shelf for quite a number of years. I found it at Big Lots for $3 or something like that. And I haven't watched it. I did see The Matrix once many years ago on cable and remember liking it quite a bit. But I can't say that I'm part of the Matrix cult or the Matrix religion, which seems to have grown up out of this story. And I haven't seen any of the sequels. But I enjoyed seeing this again. It's a very good story, very original, and has a lot of great human moments in the midst of all of the special effects and all the weirdness and everything. And I have to admit, I'm not a big special effects freak, but the ones in this movie are good, and they promote the story. And I especially love the moment where Neo takes the red pill and he wakes up in the real world. That's a fantastic moment and a fantastic sequence. The only part of this movie that I was totally bored by whenever it came up were all the scenes of the kung fu like fighting. I could care less. I'm not interested in that nonsense, and I just, God, please let this be over with soon. So that's the only part of it that I didn't care for. I thought there was way too much of that. But I know a lot of people love it. So I saw The Matrix again, enjoyed it very much. Next, I watched 3 movies. I should say rewatched 3 movies that I had seen many, many years ago, and it's been quite a while. The first one, I found a used copy of this somewhere. I can't remember where exactly, but this is Primary Colors, starring John Travolta, Emma Thompson, and Kathy Bates. Now, this was based on a novel called Primary Colors, which I did not read. And I remember seeing this when it was first released, and everybody was saying that it was a fictionalized version of Bill and Hillary Clinton and their strategies of how they run their campaign, or I should say his campaign, when he was running for president. And there are a lot of similarities. He's a governor who's not well known. He's from a southern state. His name is Jack Stanton. Her name is Susan Stanton. And they have this very sort of a tenuous relationship with each other. He's a womanizer, all sorts of things that make you think, yeah, that's just like Bill Clinton. But it's a very good movie. I enjoyed seeing it again. Kathy Bates is terrific in her supporting role. Supposedly, she was supposed to be a female version of Trent Foster. I think that was his name, Trent Foster, I believe, the one that died mysteriously. Anyway, that's another video. Primary Colors. Then I watched this film from the 1980s starring Meryl Streep. It's called Plenty. This was a great movie. I can't remember now. I've already forgotten the name of her co-star, the guy that she ended up marrying in the film. Let me see if I can read this here. Meryl Streep has Tracy Ullman, John Gielgud, Charles Dance. That's it. Yeah. Sting, Ian McKellen, Sam Neill. She plays an English woman in World War II who was part of she's helping the French resistance. She's in France, and she's living this incredibly focused and motivated, very passionate existence during the war. All the people she meets and everything around her everything is heightened excitement and sensitivity. And she meets Sam Neill, who is another British resistance fighter, and they have one night of just incredible life-altering sex, which she can never forget. Anyway, when she goes back to a normal life after the war is over and she's back in England, she simply cannot adjust to any sort of a conventional life or a conventional marriage, and she has a lot of mental difficulties throughout the rest of her life and makes a lot of people unhappy because of her difficulty. And it's a very good movie. It's not a perfect film, but it does have a very good performance by Meryl Streep. One thing that was interesting about this movie when I watched it again, Tracy Ullman has one of the supposedly major supporting roles, playing Meryl Streep's best friend. And it occurred to me after the film was over that her part could have been completely removed from the film and it wouldn't have mattered. and I like Tracy Ullman. I haven't seen her for years. I have no idea what she's doing now, but I always liked her, and she wasn't bad in what she was doing in the film, but it was a character that was totally useless. And it's not that often that I have felt that way about a character in a movie, but that was kind of an interesting reaction. Another film I decided to rewatch, another film from 1999, American Beauty, which was not scheduled for our film class, but since I'm reading the book about the films made in 1999, I started thinking about this again, decided to rewatch it, and I loved it. I loved it as much as I did the first time I saw it, but I couldn't help but find the relationship between Kevin Spacey's middle-aged married man, unhappily married man, and the teenage beauty played by Mina Suvari, who was supposed to be 16 or 17 years old. She was actually 19 or 20 when she made the film. So essentially you could say she was grown up, but it was a very disturbing thing to watch. And I don't know, it's interesting the way this film is so well made. It's so strange and so manipulative that it makes you look upon a situation like that with this rapt interest and wanting it to be resolved in some way, but it was still very, very difficult to watch. Great acting by everybody. Chris Cooper especially, one of my favorite actors. Kevin Spacey, Annette Bening, Wes Bentley, Thora Birch. Great little movie. All right. Now, I got into this box set called Women in Peril. And it has 3 movies in here. One is The Big Cube, a very strange 1970s or late 60s weird movie with Lana Turner. Trog, starring Joan Crawford, her last film. And Caged, going all the way back to 1950, a great women's prison drama starring Eleanor Parker. I had never seen Trog, the film that was Joan Crawford's last screen appearance. And I've been avoiding it forever because I didn't know how embarrassingly bad this was going to be, but I finally decided, what the hell, let's watch it. And it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I don't think that Miss Crawford humiliated herself as much as what I've read about. A lot of people say that she was just it was just a horrifying joke on Joan Crawford. It wasn't that bad from her standpoint. She gave the same sincere performance that she always tried to give in all of her films. She could have been happy about doing this, but that's another story. I don't know why they made this film. There's nothing innovative or exciting about it. The only thing that's noteworthy is the fact that they somehow got Joan Crawford to play catch with the troglodyte, or somebody who was dressed up in a troglodyte costume. Other than that, this movie was made in 1970. It could have been made in 1956. There was nothing that new about it. There was nothing that made you think, wow, this is a new approach to discovering some sort of a missing link. It wasn't. Special effects were not there to speak of at all. Maybe that's not the point of the film. The guy who was dressed up as Trog, I think he did the best he could with a thankless role and unconvincing makeup. But this is a very unfortunate ending to Joan Crawford's illustrious career as a movie star. But I'm glad I finally got around to seeing it. But I was surprised that it wasn't the incredible in-joke that I was expecting it to be. Now, I picked up 3 films the other night at Barnes & Noble. I was so tired of being cooped up at home with all this coronavirus where everything's shut down. I just had to get out and do something. And I was very happily surprised to see that Barnes & Noble was up and running. So I went in and went to their DVD section where they had a lot of things on sale for either $10 or $5, and I picked up 3 items, and one of them I'd never seen before, Ball of Fire from 1941, directed by Howard Hawks, screenplay by, what's that guy? Billy Wilder was one of them. Who's the other? Charles Brackett. They wrote the screenplay starring Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. I'm looking right at them. I can't think of their names. Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. One of the best films I've seen in years. It's sort of an updated fantasy based on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. You got these 7 men. All of them are very old men except for Gary Cooper, who's a young man. But they are holed up in this big mansion, and they're intellectual nerds. They are focused on writing a new dictionary, and that's all they live for. They live together. They have all their meals together. They have no life outside of words and English and all this sort of thing. And into their life comes this nightclub dancer named Sugarpuss O'Shea, played by Stanwyck, who is trying to find a safe place to stay because she's being sought by gangsters. Her gangster boyfriend, played by Dana Andrews, is being questioned by the police, and the police are after her. He's playing both sides against the middle, and Dan Duryea is also in it. The only one of the old men whose names I can remember is Oscar Homolka, but I can't remember the names of the other character actors. Some of the faces were familiar, but just a very, very funny movie. Great chemistry between Stanwyck and everybody in the film. And Gary Cooper is terrific, playing a guy who is very convincing as a nerd, just not what you would think Gary Cooper would be doing. But yeah, they are terrific together. Love this movie. Laughed my ass off. Oh, Gene Krupa and his orchestra are also in the film. And close to the beginning of the film, you see a great number where Sugarpuss is singing one of Krupa's great legendary tunes, Drum Boogie. Now, it's not really Stanwyck singing, but she's doing a great lip-syncing thing, and it's just a great sequence. So I'm going on and on. Next, I picked up this film that I'd never seen, Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts in Notting Hill, which just a little love story, which is not terribly significant, just other than seeing these two great charismatic people playing together with great dialogue and a lot of emotion, a lot of heart. And of course, it ends up exactly the way you want it to. It would have been cruel not to have these people end up together. And it's just a beautiful film. I had a great time watching it. And finally, I decided to pick up this musical from 1956, High Society, directed by Charles Walters. This is a musical version of the Philadelphia Story from 1940, which of course it starred Katharine Hepburn, Jimmy Stewart, and what's his name? Cary Grant. Sorry. Well, in this updated version, we have Grace Kelly doing the. Oh, we're going to hear 10 chimes now. Sorry. There's one. We have Grace Kelly doing Katharine Hepburn. We have Frank Sinatra doing Jimmy Stewart, and Bing Crosby is standing in for Cary Grant. We also have Celeste Holm. We have Sidney Blackmer. We have Lewis Calhoun. Who else do we have? Margalo Gilmore. I guess this is about it. Oh, Louis Armstrong is in it also. He brings his orchestra in. He's kind of the narrator of the story, and there's some jazz music going on with all the other music. Some of the music is very good. I just couldn't really get engaged with this film very much. I was disappointed. I thought it was going to be just a great example of a Hollywood musical that would just carry me off into fantasy. And I think the problem was Grace Kelly. To me, she was not fitting in with the other actors, all of whom were giving very warm and natural performances, whereas she, I felt, was trying so hard to channel Katharine Hepburn that she wasn't being believable. And I was never that crazy about Grace Kelly anyway. She's been good in some things, but I did not like her in this. And so it was kind of a disappointment. But, maybe I'll watch it again someday and I'll like it. And the final thing that I watched, I finally got into this Criterion collection that I bought a couple of years ago, the War Trilogy of Roberto Rossellini from the 1940s. And I watched the first one in the package, which is Rome Open City, which was released in 1945. It was actually beginning to be made during the last part of World War II, when Italy was being occupied by the Nazis. That's when he started making the film. This was supposedly the beginning of the neo-realist film movement in Italy, and it was just a major eye-opener of the time. I don't know anything about Rossellini other than his notorious affair with Ingrid Bergman. So this is the beginning, and I will watch these others hopefully this week. But this was fantastic. I mean, it really blew me away. The only actor in the film that I knew of was Anna Magnani, and I think maybe this is her first film. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody else can tell me. But it was incredible. Now, I was expecting something a little bit different. I had watched the classic film Bicycle Thieves a couple of years ago, and I had a feeling I was expecting this to be just like Bicycle Thieves, which to me was like turning a camera on someone's life and just watching them go through all these very believable and very sad situations. This was a little bit different. It had a very scripted story, a lot of long stretches of dialogue, and great acting by everybody, people who were playing the Germans and the Italians as well. But just because I was expecting it to be something different doesn't mean that I was disappointed. It was a great, great film. A group of Italian partisans are trying to fight against the Nazi occupation. Some of the people that they are involved with are actually agents for the Nazis. They're working with the Nazis against their own people. And Anna Magnani is incredible. She stands out so much from the crowd. She's so strong, forceful, and filled with emotion and that incredible voice. And this is something I will watch again and hopefully get to the others this week as well. And I've gone on for almost 16 minutes. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think about any of these movies, and comments are always welcome. Good night.